Hello and welcome to KJ's Crash Course. I am KJ, and if you're watching this video, you're either a glutton for punishment or you just couldn't possibly get enough of that long exercise before and you wanted to learn a little bit more. So this is the bonus episode for exercise 5, where we're going to learn 2 additional activities to complement your quote-unquote development journey when it comes to robotic process automation, or really any low-code tool for that matter. Okay, what we're going to learn specifically are the matches activity and the filter data table activity. The matches activity allows us to use regular expressions to parse out data, and then filter data table, if you recall from exercise 5, assuming you went through that and didn't just come straight to this like a mad person, which also too, you wouldn't be able to do this if you did that. Instead of writing an if statement, we pretty much write the if into filtering the data by the work item. So then that way you don't need to worry about using an if statement whatsoever. Okay, so what we are going to do is, we had this for previous exercise. Oh, let me go back to in the email. So if we recall from last time when we sent an email, right, let me just close this down. Right, and then right here, right, we had the work items before. What we did is I had you send it in a single line, because what we did is we did a substring of text. I think that's important because there are going to be times when you use a get text and you're just going to need one little piece of it. You could also theoretically write what we call a regular expression. And a regular expression is helpful when you have more than one line of data, right? And it's going to pull the whole thing. So if we recall about how the activity works when we need to pull data from an email, for example, you do current mail dot body, and then in the body it'll pull everything. But if it's one line, it's just one line of data. If we do it here, there's a bunch of data, which means how do we split it on that? Because then we're going to split on that, but then you're going to get KJ Fenton, senior sales engineer, my number, the whole nine. So how do we do it? Well, what we do is we use pattern matching, which is a regular expression, to get this data out. And then we'll use the same indexing that we had before to make that work. And then, just like we mentioned before, instead of the if statement that is in the workflow, we're going to change that to just a data table, copy and paste some activities around, and we'll let that run from the beginning to see what's going on. Okay, so that'll work. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the hack. So we're going to copy the project over and then open up a new one. I think it would be really good for you to see the comparison between the two. We honestly don't make too many tweaks, but it would be nice for you to be able to reference both and see, oh wow, I did it the same way in 2 different ways logically, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up wherever your folder is. It's probably UiPath. I just have the separate one. Copy that and then paste it here. And then I would just rename it right here. Rename it. We'll call it exercise 5 bonus, and then I'll call it RegEx for regular expressions and filter data table. Feel free to call it whatever you want, as long as you know that it is the bonus and there's a difference. And then let's step into that. Let's go to our project. And then I'm just going to add bonus for the sake of argument and demonstration. Feel free to go ahead and add to your description if you want, right? And if you've never done, never mind, we've already copied that over. So what I'm about to say doesn't make any sense. Okay, continuing on, close that down. And once you have updated your project, go ahead and click, double click main. Let's open this up and we will get started. Great, awesome. So once we are in here, first thing we are going to do is let's open up this sequence. You probably have it open. I don't know if you closed it on the Chevron like I did. I'm going to close this down just for feasibility purposes, because we're just working with the grab work item from email part at this point. Okay, so go ahead and expand that. And if we look at what we had, what are we doing? We're looking in the inbox. Right, we're looking for the subject contains work item to complete. So for demonstration, theoretically, if we think about how to compound on that, we could loop through each individual one, and then from there we have 2 emails. So just for the sake of demonstration, you could delete that out, but I'd welcome you to leave both in and come up with your own little way to filter. How would you choose the second one over the first one? A couple ways I'm thinking off the bat is, if the body contains my name, right, you could use that one instead using an if statement. Or another way to do it is just know that you're grabbing the first email and have a counter of 1, use an assign activity, and then in a loop for each email, so to speak, where work item is complete is there, right? And then that way you wouldn't need to worry about the second one, because if the counter is more than 1, you're not going to do anything. So multiple different ways. I'll let you tackle that. For argument and just explanation purposes, I'm going to delete my original email and just have this one here so the filter works. Okay, so now we're here. And we have the email, and then we have this assign that splits the current mail, and then we assign the work item, and then we use the right line to make sure that that is working properly. Okay. So what we're going to do instead, and not leave this, is we're going to search for what we call is a matches activity. Now go ahead and pull that in above the assign. Okay. And what we're going to do with that is we are going to use this configure regular expression. This is an awesome capability that I don't think people know about. If you knew nothing about regular expressions other than what I told you in this exercise, literally stop the video, Google a regular expression. It is the way that all of these technologies, autofill, can parse out your address the whole nine. Because what they do is they write these things right here in the expression. So let's just say I type in, the sun is yellow today, right? You can literally build like this. And let's say I'm literally looking for the. And I see how it'll highlight it, and then I say, then I'm looking for a white space. And then after that, I'm looking for like maybe something that starts with, or never mind, not that, but let's see, I'm looking for one of S or U or N, right, or the S, and like you get the idea, and it starts building this expression at the bottom. It was a pretty bad example, to be honest with you, but what it does is that this is like a code helper. So if you've ever like used like an auto generate like a formula or something like that, when you feed it some text, this is like the same concept. Super valuable when you need to pattern match and get values out of something. So I wanted to highlight this because I think it's super impactful. So what we're actually going to do is go ahead and copy the whole thing in your email with more than one line. You know, include your signature, the whole nine. Go ahead, copy that. Oh, let's go back to the builder here, and then throw it in your test text, and then delete all this out. Right? So delete all this. So now what we're literally looking for is value of blank anything. You'll see it'll pull. What we're actually looking to do is we know we want WI4, and we know that we have the identifier of this. So I'm literally looking for this. And then I just want, oh shoot, let me go back here, sorry. I'm looking for a literal colon, and it's exactly one. So if you had any 0 or more or whatever, you can do it. And then we hit this plus button. And then I'm literally looking for anything else after it, right? You could change it to any word character. You can do the whole nine. I'm looking for any, at least one or more. And you notice how it highlights that? This is the expression that we're going to use inside of our automation. So this is what you're going to see as the pattern. This is the same pattern that if you were using any coding mechanism, this is the pattern you would need to do to pull out a specific value and store it into a variable. We just have a builder to do it for you. Super cool, super impactful. Obviously, you can use the substring and it'll work, and you can parse that down. Matches is just as good, if not better, because this then creates an array of all your matches, which is a list of values. And since we know there's only one, we're going to get one, and we're going to use that index to assign the value, okay? So go ahead and click save. And then we have our here, the option, right? Result. And then we have the input, okay? So we're just going to use the variables that we had before, but the input, instead of it being in the split, we're just going to use it in the input. So we do need the properties pane open for this. So make sure you click on your matches activity, open the properties pane, and then put in current mail dot body, right? And then to string, okay? Because what are we doing? Well, the input is the data, just like our split, where we split current mail body to string by that. Instead, right, that's what we wanted to get us the value that we were looking for, right? So now that's going to give us, it's actually going to give us, if we remember the builder, it's going to give us this value. So then what we need to do is, in this activity, instead of splitting, right, current mail, we need to assign this to a value, so then that way we can have the array that we're looking for. So I'm just going to call it create a variable, Control K, or right click, array matches. You can call it whatever you want. And then in the split, instead of us using the just using the email body, we're actually going to use array matches. And then since we know we're only getting one match, indexes start at 0. Convert that to a string. And then we're splitting on that instead. So here's what this looks like in the advanced editor. So change that to, instead of current body, right, current mail.body to string, and then have that, change it to array matches. Why? We assigned the match, which is what the regular expression pulled. Using the input, we assigned it to another array. It only creates one. And then we're grabbing the first index. And then since we know it's going to split, it's going to create two of them. And then we can just take, instead of array matches or array email body, now we can take, instead of that, because we know there's going to be one, we can change that to matches and we'll be good to go, right? And that'll get us the same value. And then if you want to test that, go ahead and disable that whole sequence, click run file, and we'll go from there. No, it was a little convoluted, but I just wanted you to show that you can reuse things, you can pull stuff together. Like I said, it's a bonus for a reason, but I just wanted to be able to, like I said, show you that you can get that, and then we get, oh, we did not get what I was looking for here. So why did we not get what we were looking for? So this is actually a really, really good debugging mechanism here, because we got this. So that's not what we were looking for, which means when we pulled something, we didn't get what we were looking for here. So I am looking for literal this and then anything, but I ended up getting that. So if that happens, which I did this before, but hey, might as well debug on the fly. Might as well see how this works. So I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to take array matches and then make that 0 to string and see what I get there. So now I'm going to rerun this and just see what I get. I could easily run it in debug, but I figure it's just easier to use a write line. I pulled that, so I get, yeah, W14. Awesome. So when I did that, split and then use email body. Oh. I feel like that's the reason why. Because in my array matches, it actually was the wrong thing. It's because we assign it to, oh, well, silly me. Let's walk through our logic here. We assign this to array of matches, and then we split array of matches, and then we assign it to email body. So why did I change this one? That was a really stupid thing. I'm glad y'all followed along there, right? It actually should be email body because we assigned it to there. Silly me. So now we do that. We run file again. I could theoretically delete this, but I think it's good to leave it. Whatever you build, the robot will do. So remember that when you're doing things. And we can see right there, output is there, and we have the W14 that we're looking for, so we're good to go. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that there, and then we can move on. So cool activity. I know that's a little convoluted. I welcome you. Please pull in something else, use the matches activity on something else, figure out how this all works. It is going to be a super impactful little tool. It's going to be especially helpful when you start delving into intelligent document processing. Now, granted, we do have a capability for that, and a bunch of other companies out there have a solution for that. But here's the kicker. Sometimes you don't need a third-party document processor to get data out. Right? And I'll let you explore how that works, but you're going to probably use that matches activity, and it's going to really be helpful. So just something to keep in mind, especially if you have one value in a document where all you need is the whole text, because then your input becomes document text, and you give it a pattern, and then you assign the result here, and you loop through it, and you do the same thing. So super effective. I'll let you go down that path when you get there, but let's move on. Awesome. So we got the data from the email that we have, which is great. So I'm going to go ahead and enable this now. Now let's go edit what we had inside of our complete work items sequence. Okay. So right here, we have our try catch, which is our login, right? And then complete work items, extract data, and then we have this right range workbook. Okay. So we have that there. But what we actually could do is that instead of using the right range and then using the Excel activities, if you took the bonus from exercise 3, let's learn VB expressions, you learned you don't need to use the Excel activities to iterate through a data table. We can do the same thing without that. So if you're looking for a little bit more of a precursor, I'd welcome you pause the video, check where you're at, go back and take the bonus of exercise 3, let's learn VB expressions, because what we're doing may not necessarily make sense because I did introduce you to that before. If you've done it before and you just want to follow along, go ahead, go for it. It'll be great, and I think it's going to be a learning exercise no matter what. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and disable this. Control D is how you do that, or right click on it and then hit disable activity. Close that down. Okay. So instead, we know that we get this data to extract data table. So instead of using the right range that we had before, we're going to use what we call a filter data table. All right. So we're going to go ahead, pull that in. And then what we're going to do is in the data table to use in filtering, we know it's extract data table. And then we can configure a filter. Okay. So let's configure the filter. Well, what are we trying to keep? Well, we know the column, we could use the index, but we know the header, if we recall from our work items, and we can use that in the project, which is why I had us copy this over. If we open this up, because we already ran this before, we just need the type. We just need the type to equal whatever the work item to complete that we pulled from the email is, right? So that's what we're going to use. So in your configure filter, type is your column header, and it equals, you could theoretically use it contains as well. And what is it? Oh, it's our work item to complete. And then output, you just have to make sure you create a variable for it. So I'm going to call it DT filtered table. Click OK. And there we go. And now we have a new data table that we can use throughout the automation. And now we don't even need this if statement. We can just pull this whole sequence out and just loop through the data table instead. So I know you probably were like, well, why didn't we do that before? Well, I wanted to show you multiple ways to do something, right? Because sometimes you're going to think, oh, I want to use Excel. Sometimes you're going to say, I don't. Both are going to work because, hey, at the end of this, it's all inputs and outputs. As long as you get the proper output using the proper inputs, it doesn't really matter how you get there. I know people are going to say there's best practices. I know that you're going to need to follow that, and eventually you will. But in a minimum viable product for you building your own automations, I think you should just learn all the capabilities and then figure out what works best for you, which is why I made this as part of the bonus. So it proves that you actually care and you're doing the work. All right. So moving on here, right now what we're going to do is we have our data table. Go ahead and minimize this for now because we're going to make this a little bit easier. So just from a feasibility standpoint, we're going to add an activity, pull in a for each row for a data table. Like I said, if you haven't taken exercise 3's bonus, I would highly recommend go back and do that. But right here, right, for each current row in the filtered data table. And now we have a body block that we can do all these activities with. Well, guess what? You can delete that out, go to here, and then see this sequence, copy it, paste, and it'll all pull over. Now the difference will be, right, we have current row by field. We do have to make some edits here, but we're going to just do that in real time. But all of the UI activities that don't require a variable, so to speak, or something that we pulled from Excel, all we have to do is just update it with a little bit of VB syntax here. Okay, so super simple. And then once you're done with that, go ahead and this Excel process scope, just disable it. We don't need it. And it looks a lot cleaner, which is really awesome. Okay. So in this go to URL, we know that the URL is always consistent, but this was the original Excel based syntax that we had. We have to change that to, instead of current row by field here, because that's not a member of it, what we actually just need to do is change this to item and then convert it to a string. And that will get rid of that issue there. So once again, let me just pull this out so that way you can see what this looks like here. The URL, this is what you should see. That's the syntax for the go to URL. Change by field to item here. and that'll pull the data that we're looking for. And then in here, instead of current row by field description, you guessed it, we're going to change by field to item to string. And I think that's every field. And assuming we did that, we should be able to rerun our automation. So go ahead and log in real quick. We're going to reset our data so we can run this again. And then go to user out, because I think in all the work items, assuming you've done this right, you should see a completed on every work item 4. Go ahead, hit home, user options, reset test data. I do want to reset it. It won't take very long unless you have a super slow internet connection. It's been successfully reset. We'll go ahead, we'll log out, so that way it's just a nice clean run. And assuming you've made the edits accordingly, you've successfully learned how to use matches instead of just a substring, which is a great little capability. And we filtered the data out, which is a lot easier. But when we use filter data table, it is a system-based activity. We aren't going to use Excel unless we wrote it to Excel and then we did that, which would be fine. But I figured we might as well just use the system activities and teach you a little bit of VB along the way. Awesome. But assuming you did that, go ahead and give it a run, and we'll see what this looks like. Awesome. I think we're good. So let's go ahead and check our work here. Let's go back to work items and let's just do a nice little spot check. Okay, none of them work here. Then we go to, oh, we got it completed there. Let's keep moving on. Nope, nothing there. But yep, completed. Let's make sure we get another one here. Completed. Oh, wow, that was a lot of them. Yep, completed. And let's just go to the end. Make sure we did it. Yep, and completed. Awesome. So, like I said, I know this was a little bit easier than the other one, but I just wanted to kind of let you do the work and muscle through a little bit, so that way when you go into the working world, or the wild, as I like to call it, so to speak, you can get ahead and just be able to know really just a bunch of different ways to achieve the same outcome. That is all I wanted to show with the bonus, so congratulations. I hope to see y'all in exercise 6, where we actually learn how to publish your automation to Assistant, so that way you don't need to open up Studio every time, which will be pretty awesome. I am KJ signing off. Feel free to review the supplemental material below, and I will see you at the, really what we're getting to is the conclusion of KJ's crash course. I will talk to y'all later. Peace.